Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Friday Eve. Alicia, Rob, Paul, Detrice. Good morning. Kings and queens, right? The next generation. Hope you had a great night's sleep. Hope you had a nice, restful, restorative night's sleep, and you've gotten, your best foot put forward here this morning. I woke up and was able to get a lot of work done this morning off rip, which is a great feeling, just working from the phone. I feel like something that is a luxury of 2024, but got a lot of stuff done. Woke up, made breakfast for a divine breakfast for me in the homestead, and just had a great morning and felt like sharing that with you guys. And I'm excited that we've still got the majority of the day ahead of us. It's only not even 9 a.m. and we're already getting buckets. That's the type of momentum that we want going into the day, and that's exactly what I pray everybody here got as well. And even if you didn't get it, right, you got the majority of the day ahead of you. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to get it. So I'm excited to get after it today. Let me see here. Shout out Andrea, whether she ends up watching live or via replay, for the Respect My Boundaries t-shirt. Love that. Big fan. And nice quality, nice vibes. I woke up and I was like, yeah, I'm wearing this and I'm flashing it in the mirror, right? Wear it to yourself, because there's a lot of times when you don't respect your own boundaries, and that's really what the problem that ends up being is, right? You don't respect yourself. So respecting yourself this morning, that is the vibe. That's what I woke up on: respecting myself, respecting my time, right? Respecting what I want to get done out of the day, and absolutely attacking that. And so far it has definitely resonated. So big fan, and I'm excited to keep moving in that vein here as we dive into the meat and potatoes of the day. Now, before we get started, you all know the drill. Drop your ones in the chat, signifying your intention to get 1% better. This is the pre-market prep session. We're going over important news, notes, analysis, all that good stuff, right, to continuously get you better each and every day, keep you ahead of the curve, right, and evolving along with this world, which is changing even faster than it used to. But drop those in the chat, whether you're watching live or via replay. And now we're going to get into it. Our top news: new red scare. So China has responded to the U.S. House bill passed against TikTok, and it doesn't look like it's going to make the U.S.-Sino relationship any better. While the measure still has to wind its way through the Senate, it would essentially ban the platform for all Americans unless TikTok's operations were divested from Chinese parent firm ByteDance, ticker BDNCE. The formal name of the bill, titled the, quote, Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act. They have a abbreviation. What is that? PAFACA? PAFACA? I don't know. Maybe somebody will come up with something that rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. But that also likely riled Beijing, which was quick to lay out its position and accused Washington of resorting to acts of bullying. I don't understand how it's acts of bullying when all of our social networks are banned there. This is like that person who, is always mean to you, and then you finally respond to them, and then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. It's like, all I'm doing is giving you a fifth of the energy that you gave me. In terms of quotes here, quote, though the U.S. has never found any evidence of TikTok posing a threat to U.S. national security, it has never stopped going after TikTok, said Wang Wenbin, spokesman for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Quote, such practice of resorting to hegemonic moves when one could not succeed in fair competition disrupts the normal operation of business, undermines the confidence of international investors in the investment environment, and sabotages the normal economic and trade order in the world. This will inevitably come back to backfire on the United States itself. China's whole policy of it strengthening Chinese-born companies is protectionist policies, right? If you guys remember, your OGs, you remember from way back, talking about India and really mapping India's rise over the course of the past 5 years. The past 5 to 10 years has really been India adopting a lot of protectionist policies from China, because otherwise American big tech comes in and crushes them, right? It happens in literally every other nation where a tech company is created. They get some buzz. American big tech notices. They buy them. They Americanize them. And then there's no, vestige left of that native company's innovation. China did not want that to happen. So they banned a lot of U.S. companies from operating in China. They also just ripped off a lot of U.S. companies. So that statement I just find really funny with this disrupts fair competition. what did your protectionist policies do? That technically disrupted global fair competition. When it came to economic practices, because that's normal, right? In the world of economics and of money and of companies, big companies swallow smaller companies when those smaller companies become big enough to notice. That's what happens, and they didn't want that to happen. So they, installed protectionist policies, and that's exactly what's happening here. It's literally just protectionist policies. At the end of the day, as long as humans are no longer immortal, everyone is going to make decisions that is in the best interest of themselves, right? And their limited life, right? So it's like everyone at some point is going to make protectionist decisions. That's just the way it is, right? That's just the way it is. Now, speaking of fair competition, Beijing does not allow any US social media companies to operate in China, though there appears to be something bigger here at play. It revolves around the significant policy shift in how to deal with China in the evaluation of what capabilities should be ascribed to the CCP. What started as a crusade against intellectual property theft and unfair trade practices has morphed into accusations of mass surveillance in the ability to influence an entire generation of American youth. That statement right there sums this whole situation up. So I'm going to repeat it because it's so true. Over the past, 5 years of us tracking the U.S.'s relationship with China, it's centered on intellectual property theft. Like that was the biggest issue, and it still is a big issue. But now it is transformed into the ability to literally influence the majority of the American population. When you look at it, 170 million users of TikTok are here in the US, right? 170 million. And we've already seen the fact that that can have influence, right? All these stupid challenges that threaten people's lives, right? That circulate, them showing, teenagers and influencing. Now, the people that commit the most crimes are teenagers, right? Violence, all of that, like the car theft, all the different hustles and the scamming, all of that has been propagated on TikTok. And I'm not saying that none of it is on Instagram, none of it is anywhere else, but it's a lot. You didn't have Kia Boys before you had TikTok, right? You didn't have a lot of these things going on. And the fact that we're in an election year and something that occupies 7 to 9 hours of time out of every normal youth, right? I was just going through studies yesterday as the ban happened, and I was just digging into more stuff. Like between 5 on the low side and 10, 12 hours on the high side is what the average American youth spends on TikTok. Like that's not just you can't write that off, right? Anything at that point can be considered a weapon. This Stanley Cup can be considered a weapon when wielded the right way. It's the same thing. So it's like anything that has that much influence on a generation and it's from a foreign state controlled body is a national security threat, right? No matter which way you slice it. That's not to say that American social networks are great, right? They're not. They're proven to have negative effects, especially on the developing mind, and cause increased instances of loneliness and depression and anxiety and body dysmorphia, all of that stuff, right? But you deal with one problem at a time, and at least there you realize that okay, at least American interests are here. But it's not the same when it comes to a foreign controlled body. So investing angle, this new bipartisan view. Actually, let me see here because there's one more sentence left. That doesn't mean the threat isn't real or isn't happening, especially given the danger of a new global order. But one thing seems certain: there will be trade-offs of American liberties in exchange for a dramatic expansion of state power. Now, investing angle, this bipartisan view is already spilling over into the free market and broader economy. It's mixed with a heavy dose of protectionism and isolationism and is likely to be the mainstay of American policy for the foreseeable future. Throw an 8 in the chat from the big 8, right? We used to mention the big 8 a lot more, but one of those 8 factors that is shaping and molding how the market is moving is the rise of protectionism, right? The death of globalization and the rise of protectionism. It used to be, I make this, I send it to you, you make that, you send it to me. Then the global supply chain fell apart, right? And now, after a while of that being in that decrepit state, everybody has to start looking out for themselves. Some countries already looked out for themselves more than others, but now it's pretty much every country that is taking more time to look out for itself. So this is really just a byproduct of that. in Europe is very tough on American big tech as well, like especially in the UK. In the UK and France, they're very tough on American big tech, and they're always trying to break this up and da da da. So everyone does what's in their own best interest, and it's not like this is any hostility that is out of the ordinary. Um, China, quote, does not want the U.S. to have its own domestic solar industry, dot, dot, dot. It's a pretty dire situation. First Solar CEO Mark Widmar declared on Wednesday, a day after warning a Senate committee that the U.S. risks becoming a, quote, de facto extension of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Other recent examples include comments from Elon Musk that Chinese car makers will, quote, demolish most other car companies in the world, barring legislative or executive action, as well as similar sentiment in other sectors spanning shipbuilding to semiconductors. We're in a new arms race, but the arms race involves computer chips and alternative energy, right? And unfortunately, the biggest obstacle right now for us is China. So that is how the cookie is crumbling here currently. But let's see. All right, cool, awesome. Just checking in on you guys, making sure everything is good. Now we can pop back over to automotive news. Also, I think that's really funny. Again with the Elon Musk, like BYD. They asked him about BYD a few years ago, and he like laughed it off. He's like, "Who?" And then now he's saying that Chinese car makers will quote demolish most other car companies in the world. That's a drastic change, my friend. In terms of automotive news, EV winter, it looks like the electric vehicle euphoria is losing steam. Nice transition there. As automakers scale back EV plans and slash prices to compete in the saturated market. Sparked by a Wells Fargo call that turned bearish, Tesla slid 4.5% on Wednesday, making it the S&P 500's worst performing stock in 2024. That is crazy, right? Think about in the heyday, like before the split and all that stuff, when Tesla was just crushing it, crushing it, crushing it. Everybody and their mama is trying to be involved with Tesla. And now it's just Nvidia sits unmatched, and everybody and their mama wants involved with computer chips and AI, and Tesla is just the worst performing stock of the S&P 500. Crazy times we live in. I'm glad that we're here each and every morning staying on top of this stuff. Quote, after years of peak spending on EVs and autonomous vehicles, auto manufacturers are pivoting to capital efficiency and return. Morgan Stanley added, noting that makers of gas-powered cars are poised to deliver shareholder gains. Elsewhere, troubled EV maker Fisker, ticker FSR, is planning to file for bankruptcy. Wow, just weeks after issuing a going concern warning. Crazy. Bankruptcy for Fisker. It's a hard knock life, right? Out here in these EV streets. In terms of earnings news, dollars and cents. Dollar Tree tumbled 14.2% on Wednesday after the discount retailer's Q4 results came in below expectations and its guidance was viewed as lackluster. This is something that's more of a surprise, right? And something that we often see during times of economic hardship, inflation, things like that, is that discount retailers like a Dollar Tree, like a Kohl's, like all these different places, Dollar General, DG, their revenue goes up because people who normally shop at middle tier places drop to shopping at lower tier places. People that shop at high tier places typically stay there, except for the ones that were already pushing it to begin with. They drop to the middle. Most people who shop at, high-end places continue to shop there, but a lot of times you have middle level spots, that drop to the lower. So this is surprising that they're not still doing well. Might have to do with theft, because we're finally at a point in history where it's like theft is just commonplace. I mean, just stealing is everywhere, and it's crazy to think about, but people just stealing left and right. You look at Target closing all these stores. You can't freaking go into CVS and buy anything that isn't behind the glass cases anymore. So whether or not theft is an issue with them, I don't know. I haven't dug deeply into the earnings call, or the written report, but it's not too far off to imagine that also probably played a role. So yeah, was definitely more so surprising to me. Also, they're closing like a bunch of stores. Like I think it was over 1,000 stores. So high inflation and less spending didn't help the situation. The company also plans to close around 600 Family Dollar stores in the first half of 2024, with another 370 Family Dollar and 30 Dollar Tree stores to be closed over the next several years. So they're closing 1,000 stores total. Family Dollar, quote, Family Dollar is a victim of the macro environment out there, CEO Rick Drayling said on an earnings call, calling out additional headwinds like elevated shrink and reduced SNAP benefits. Elevated shrink is theft. So we were right on target with that. Dang, they are literally stealing companies out of business. That's wild. I'm not old enough to remember a time where that was a thing, where they are literally thieving companies, like publicly listed companies are getting thieved out of existence. Crazy. Let's see. Media news coming around. Harvest Moon is returning to Spotify more than 2 years after Neil Young removed his entire catalog from the music streaming service in protest of a Joe Rogan podcast that featured mRNA virologist Dr. Robert Malone. Quote, my decision comes as Apple and Amazon have started serving the same disinformation podcast features I'd opposed at Spotify, Young noted on his website. I cannot just leave Apple and Amazon like I did Spotify because my music would have very little streaming outlet to music lovers overall. Yeah, bro. Everybody wants to take a stand until it gets in between them and that bag. And then at that point, your morals really ain't that important to you, are they? The Joe Rogan Experience is currently Spotify's top podcast and recently secured a $250 million multi-year deal with the platform. In terms of today's markets, looking more so green than red. In Asia, Japan up 0.3%, Hong Kong down 0.7%, China down 0.2%, India up 0.5%. The footy in London flat, Paris up 0.9%, Frankfurt up 0.2%, the Dow up 0.3%, S&P up 0.3%, Nasdaq up 0.4%, crude up 0.8%, gold down 0.3%, Bitcoin down 0.6%. We get jobless claims this morning and producer price index data this morning. Got that at 8:30 a.m. Let's see here. And then in terms of, let's check out and see if SPY had any reaction to the news that we got. Looks like at 8:30 when we got the news, we popped a little bit, almost to the level at which we were before the drop, and then now we're back headed lower. So at least the initial result of whatever news came out is looking like it's not very positive. With CPI running hot, it's not like they always have to be hand in hand, but it is more often than not that also CPI would be running hot. So, or excuse me, PPI would after CPI did. So that could be the case here. But SPY still within this channel. I mean, just absolute chop fest yesterday. Just up, down, up, down, up, down. And that random selling wick in the middle of the day toward the end of the day. And we ended up, closing lower than where we opened, but just a lot of chopping, a lot of consolidation. The market loves to act up whenever I want to go get a haircut. Like that is just one of the things you guys are probably used to it by now. Whenever I want to go and actually groom myself, the market just wants to go buck wild. And it was doing exactly that, just bucking up and down yesterday over the course of the day. Thank you. I appreciate that. They've hit me in the DMs with the PPI data. So U.S. wholesale prices picked up in February and sign that inflation pressures remain elevated. So yeah, basically, like what SPY was kind of indicating to us based off of that movement, the PPI was elevated like the CPI. So that would kind of explain what we're getting here. Now, does that mean we drop it like it's hot? No. We went on to hit new all-time highs on SPY after getting that elevated CPI data. Does it mean that we could eventually fire this ascending parallel channel to the downside? Yes, right. But we need to wait and see that happen, before we jump to any conclusions. But that is definitely something that is on the radar, heavy on the radar. What else is happening? Rapid fire stock news rundown. That's how we're going to close it out today, like every other day. EU lawmakers greenlight first ever global AI regulation. Bayer weighs Texas two-step bankruptcy from Roundup. Pay. This was funny. Pay for their Coke. Palantir CEO blast short sellers. He pretty much was fed up with people, short selling on his stock, and he was like, the only reason why all these, big wigs on Wall Street are short selling my stock is in order to pay for their Coke, like the drug. So my guy was feeling it yesterday, and he was letting them fly. So by all means, bro, talk your stuff, spit that fire. Musk sours on Don Lemon's new show on X, cancels partnership. Dang. Rip Don Lemon, man. I feel like the OGs, they're going down, the media OGs, one at a time. Under Armour, ticker UAA, founder Kevin Plank to return as brand CEO. I didn't know he left. U.S. Steel, their ticker X, sinks amid new concerns over Nippon Steel takeover. Grayscale files to spin off mini Bitcoin trust ETF from GBTC. GE Healthcare marks worst drop in 2024 as GE cuts stake. Altria, ticker MO, to sell part of AB InBev Holdings via secondary offering. And then, as irrelevant as it is false, New York Times denies OpenAI's hacking claim. So the battle between the dinosaurs and the robots of the future rages on. But that'll wrap it up for us today. Thursday, Pi Day, for my math nerds out there, right? Happy Pi Day. Get out there, get yourself a slice, and also let's get ourselves a slice of profits here in these markets. Everybody have a great day. We'll be back here tomorrow for our last Premarket Prep session of the week. Have a good one.